Okay, guys, this is our after live conversation, and the conversation continues. So I didn't want us to miss anybody in this powerful conversation. We started talking about successors. We started talking about succession, how important that is. So let's jump right back into it. What were you saying about succession and what you wanted to share?
Well, I wanted to share that, succession is very important. And I think that leaders need to have successors. And it's not just in the church realm, but I will also say also in, again, corporate America, in your businesses, it's important to have succession. The Bible talks about that. You had Moses. When you look at Moses and his training, he had a successor. He had Joshua. He had Joshua. When you look at Elisha and Elijah, they had succession. There was succession there. When you look at Jesus Christ and his disciples, even though that we know that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, the Bible talks about there is no successor after him with Jesus. But because we have been engrafted and have been adopted in the family, understand what Jesus said as he ascended into heaven. He said, "Greater work shall you do because I go to the Father." He dwells inside of us. We are actually doing as Jesus has done. Okay, what he's supposed to be doing. Greater works, great works. There's supposed to be succession, and your successors are supposed to be taking your work even greater, doing even more feats than you ever have accomplished. And the problem is there's not successes happening. I don't understand. It should not be that people are transitioning, dying, even in the midst of this COVID. All right, as horrific as it is, that people, that congregations might be left without leadership, or companies without leadership. Who was your successor? Who have you been pouring into? How have you been multiplying yourself? It's not just you multiplying yourself and being a blessing to everybody else, but also who are you pouring into to be the next? Pastor Miles Monroe, he passed away a few years back, but there was something that he preached about. He preached about succession too. And he talked about a vision that he had. He said in this vision that God showed him before he passed away, because mind you, he had successors. He had somebody for youth ministry. He said, me as a pastor, I've already had my successor. I already have my successor and the person that's going to be the next. And also in youth ministry, the person who's going to be the next. Okay. And he talked about it every 10 years or every few years, he gets a successor. He said in this vision that he had, he saw somebody in a funeral home in a casket, and they had a baton in their hand, and the baton was closed on them like this, and the baton was right here. And it's but the problem is, he said a lot of people are passing away and have not passed the baton. They graduated to glory. They've been promoted to glory, but they have not yet been able to pass the baton to somebody else. So now we just open. So we got to interview pastors. We got to interview the next CEOs. We got to interview who's going to be the next, who even has the heart for that thing. We don't even know yet. So it's important to leave a successor. It's important to do that. Kings had that. Them that in authority had that. Moses had that. He understood. Joshua, thank God Joshua was there. And God even told Moses, understand, you're not going into the promised land, but Joshua is. He's going to take the people across. He's going to go into the land flowing with milk and honey. Not you. Your time is up. It's time for you to pass the baton.
Wow.
It's time for you to pass the baton. And a lot of leaders are not passing the baton. Okay? It doesn't matter how old you are. And yes, you could be up in age, but you got to be realistic. You're getting older. Okay? You're getting older. You may or may not have health issues. But next, you cannot think that you're going to be here forever. Who are you passing the legacy down to? There's no passing. Do you want it to die? You got to be willing to pass the baton. I remember I spoke to a pastor before, and I was talking to him about succession. I'm like, okay, who's the next? Who are you mentoring? Who are you really pouring into? So, I don't know. I don't see nobody. Okay, sometimes you might not see nobody, but what I've realized, sometimes people don't want to see. Sometimes people don't want to see, because it's like to see yourself not being there, to see yourself not in leadership, or you're judging people according to your standards. But the Bible says, if we learn anything from what God told the prophet Samuel, I don't look at outward appearance. I look at the heart. King David, his successor was his son Solomon. But Solomon shouldn't have been the successor. The firstborn was Amon. Amon passed away, but succession still went to Solomon. You got to look at the heart. You got to ask God, who is going to be the successor? You got to start praying about that. You got to really ask God, who is it? And understand, you might be shocked at who it might be. All right, God, help me get them ready. Help me get them ready. Okay, they're not my cup of tea. But you know what? Because some people have in their mind these qualifications of who the next to be is. I don't understand. We feel like they got to have this. They got to have these amount of degrees. They got to be able to be a wonderful communicator. They got to have this. They got to have that. They got to have this type of salary. They got to have that. And God might not be looking at that. But at the end of the day, that cannot be your excuse as to why you don't have a successor. God, who is it? Who do I pass the baton to? Who am I getting ready for when it's time? Who am I getting ready? I remember when I was a youth pastor at Highland Church, I had a team of young people there. All right. And when I left the church and I transitioned out, I remember telling my pastor then, all right, having a meeting with him, telling him, okay, my time is up. Because I didn't think I was going to be doing that forever. And that's the mindset I had. I'm not going to be doing this forever. God, I know that you're going to be taking me to something greater. I know that there is greatness inside of me. I know that there is more inside of me that I have not even cracked open. So when it was my time, I told my former pastor then, I said, sir, I have these two people in mind. I asked him, is it okay? I think they should work as a team. But I had a plan. I already was getting them ready for succession. I was getting them ready. Hey, I'm passing the baton to you. See, you can't think of when you're asking for succession to think of, okay, but I don't know what they're going to do with it. Are they going to make it, are they going to ruin it? Everything that I built. And so we make things about us instead of about God. Are they going to ruin everything that I built? Because, God, I was doing this for how long and I built this thing and I got my name. It ain't about you. It's supposed to be about him. So I passed it along and I didn't worry. I told them, listen, I'll coach you. I'll help you. If you need any questions, I'm always there for you, but it's your time. It's your time to run this race. It's your time. As people that are going to have successors, you can't be worried about what they're going to do with it. Listen, you give them to God. You give it over to God. Who knows? They might take it further, or they might not take it further, or they might, I don't know, but it's not your problem anymore. It's God. But that should not be an excuse why you do not have a successor. You have to have a successor. Who are you pouring into? You have to. I've been redundant with that. And it saddens me, Chanel. Yeah. That people don't. I'm so sad about that. I'm so sad. And I look and I watch. And I'm like, okay, so who is the next? Oh, we don't know yet. Now the church got to pray about it. Now we got to pray. Now we got to get the board and we got to get the deacon board. We got to get the trustees to find out who's going to be the next pastor. What? Okay. Did it really have to be like that? Okay, who knows? Did it really have to be like that? Yeah. Were you getting somebody ready for the transition?
Yeah. I think this conversation is one of those conversations that every pastor, especially in light of the pandemic, should be having with themselves and with their team, with their board of trustees, and really establishing that. I thank God for my bishop, Dr. Jonathan Shaw. He has a template for succession. So he literally created something that pastors can use to help them navigate the conversation of succession and to document everything so that in the event that they transition or they retire, they can have everything documented and notarized so that it's passed on as the official document of succession. And so if any of you guys are interested in that, please inbox me and I will forward your information to his administrator to make sure that you get that. But when we talk about succession, I'm often thinking about how powerful succession is and how succession should be planned, not situational, right? Yeah. Most of our succession takes place because of a situation, not because we planned it, right? And we got to stop that pattern, because succession for many churches takes place because of scandal or death. Let's just be real.
And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. That should always be the plan.
It's not because it was planned. It was because of a scandal or because of somebody died.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to break that. We got to break that. And our generation of leadership, you talked about in the earlier broadcast about habits that we learned from the previous leaders, right? The previous generation of leaders. We have to
Mm-hmm.
identify unhealthy habits that we have been given by the leadership that went before us. And no shade to them. Everybody's just doing the best that they know how. However,
Yes.
when you find out something is wrong, right? When you find out this could be done better, then you should be doing it better. And so we got to unlearn those unhealthy habits. We need to unlearn that. You should not wait for a scandal or for death in order to have a succession plan. You should have a plan in place because you are global minded. You are mission minded. You're not trying to build your empire. You are trying to lead his mission. This is not about your empire.
But you
You
see,
know?
did you see what you just said? The empire. It's nothing wrong with leaving a legacy. All right, you leave a legacy of doing good. You were faithful. You were just. You ran your race. You did your course. You did everything. To God be the glory. A legacy of integrity and holiness. God is good. But
Come
when
on.
your motivation is to build your empire, now I'm talking about in Christendom, in the church, and not his kingdom. That's the problem. And a lot of people are not planning for anything. Just like nobody knew, even in the corporate arena, nobody knew that this pandemic was going to be as big as it was. So everybody was planning their next course of action on an hour-to-hour basis. Nobody was really thinking futuristically. And
Yeah.
that is the issue. Nobody is thinking futuristically. You cannot think that you are going to be in here forever. We talked about the last broadcast looking at your circle. And that is even looking at your assistant pastors, them that are on your team, them that are on the deacon board. Okay. If you got deacons, now I'm gonna be honest, okay? If you got deacons that are up in age, to God be the glory, they in their 80s and 90s, you gotta start thinking about, okay, deacon such and such, mother such and such ain't gonna be here forever. Mother such and such, deacon, who do you have as the next?
Come on.
So that nothing gonna fall and we don't know what to do with our heads in the sand. Okay.
Right.
If you are a pastor and you got your assistant pastor, associate pastors, everybody on your pastoral ministerial team is your same age and even older. Hello, what's going on? You need somebody. Ain't nobody young. You ain't got nobody young you pouring into. Let the older man teach the younger man. Let the older woman teach the younger woman. Ain't nobody here. It's just you. It's just you and your children. Okay. God is good. All right. Ain't nobody here. Everybody's your age or even older. Everybody on your staff is having health issues. You got to start thinking about this thing so that there is no panic. You got to start planning. You got to start prepping. You got to start putting people in position, all right, and speak to them and say, listen, I'm not saying that you're going to be the leader tomorrow, but I'm going to start training you. I want to mentor you. I want to groom you. I will correct you if you off, okay? But I'm training you and I'm getting you ready, all right, to function, all right, to function in a role that God is going to be calling you to function in. And I don't going up in there and not knowing stuff, because we have right now people now that are in position that don't know no better, because they became successors and then they had nobody mentoring them.
That's it.
Okay, they ain't got nobody mentoring them and they doing the best they can, but unfortunately they practicing on everybody in their congregation.
Come on.
Because the person that they succeeded has probably gone home to glory, or they just passed the mantle to them. And it's like, come on, I was impressed, but you're anointed. Understand that David was anointed to be king, I believe, at age 17. He was anointed to be king by Samuel. But guess what he did? He went right back into school, right back in the field, tending his father's sheep, understanding family, understanding responsibility, getting discipline. Then he went onto the field. But he was anointed king. He went onto the field and he served, but still understanding the ropes. He understood warfare and combat. Then he was engrafted and placed into the family. And he was in the palace, learning, being under, got married, serving his leader. He's watching his leader, being mentored, even though his leader was not a good leader, even though his leader was jealous of him. He was still
Okay.
watching him, being mentored, understanding the protocol in a palace, understanding how palaces work, understanding who has what title and what their
Okay.
function is. So until he finally became king at 30. Come on,
I love
you
it.
might be anointed for that thing, but you still weren't prepared for it.
Come on.
And it's the
I love it.
responsibility of of
Woo.
of your predecessor. Come
Jesus.
on, predecessors. You have to mentor. You have to. You have to mentor. You have the responsibility. If you're so worried about what's going to happen to the church, what's going to happen to the people, then you need to mentor. Pull them in. You tell them to follow you. You tell them to let them see you in action. How
That's
you
right.
deal with the people, how you love on the people. Let them understand how the church works. Let them have sit downs with the trustees and then they're on a deacon board and understand functions and how a church is supposed to function. Because if you don't, you might be wondering about your successor. They'll be in position and make a debacle of everything, and now you got scandal.
Yeah.
You have predecessor. You have to have a successor. You have to. You
And
have to.
what I love about what you said is that it's dangerous to put people in place before time.
It's dangerous.
So even though David was identified as the successor, he still had to go through a process to be
Come on,
purified and prepared for the position.
and to get character, to learn discipline, to
He
learn
had to be
responsibility,
prepared.
to learn. If you can't take care of sheep and keep them safe from lions and tigers and bears, oh my, how are you gonna take care of people? Huh? How are you gonna take care of people?
Yeah.
If you don't know how to serve, then you don't know how to lead. Can you still serve a crazy leader that's trying to throw javelins at you? It's
Come on.
hunting you. Can you still honor them? It's not like they're correcting you to get you better, but they're trying to kill you. Can you still honor them and not go up on Facebook and talk about them?
That's right. And that's one thing that I love about the story of David and his succession and what that looked like, because you see it so written so clearly. And I'm going to even segue from David into his successors, right? So when we look at David and his process to being the successor for Saul, you see him go through a process to be purified and prepared for his moment. And if he had went in there too soon, he would have messed things up. But when he got in there, because he submitted to the process, because he was prepared on the field, right? He was prepared. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sitting down looking pretty and just showing up, but he got to work. He did the work. He did
Yep.
the work. We're not
Yep.
putting people in positions who have not done the work, okay? He
Come
did the
on.
work. So this is something for those of you who are predecessors. You're looking for a successor. Who is doing the work?
Come
David
on.
did the work. He was doing the work out in the field. And when he got into the position, because he had character, because he had fortitude, because he understood courage, he could work under those conditions. He wasn't
Yes.
fleeing. And if we're real honest about this generation, we are quick to flee. This
Come
this
on.
millennial generation can't take nothing. You
No.
you you flee at the first sign of trouble. You on Facebook throwing subs. You got an attitude about this and that. You stop coming to church. You're not ready to be a successor.
No. Can you still stay in?
Sorry, we lost connection. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. You can hear me
Hello?
good?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Yes.
So we
Yeah.
lost connection. But what I was saying is that
Yes.
you got to learn how to work and operate under different conditions and different
Yes.
environments. Even with David, when Saul was throwing those javelins at him, he never left his
Yeah.
post because he knew that that was his assignment. He knew that that's
Yeah.
what God wanted him to be, and he had built in his character the fortitude to stand that climate. And so I think that when you start thinking about being a successor, because we need to have a conversation with those that want to be the successor, right? When you start thinking about that, get ready. You got to
You
get
got to get
ready.
ready.
And you can't just think because you're a son, right? A spiritual son or natural son, a spiritual daughter or natural daughter, that automatically the mantle comes to you. You can't assume that. You can't assume that. And
Yeah.
that's the scary part, because you look at what Jesus did with his disciples. Go back to what Jesus did with his disciples. How did he prepare them to be his successors? He spent
Come on.
time with them, he mentored them, he corrected them. He said, look,
Yeah.
y'all, oh ye of little faith, we need to work on this. This is an area you couldn't cast it out. How you gonna feed these people? He gave them
That's right.
hands-on assignments. He was very engaging with them. And I think that one of the things that we are missing, because we're so fearful of relinquishing the baton, is we're missing the element of purification and preparation. We're not intentionally preparing a successor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, God's going to do it, so we don't have to worry about nothing, and it's not true.
No. And I would say this. You know, David knew in his heart. He knew what the Lord told him. He knew who the successor was going to be. He understood certain things. He knew that it was going to be Solomon, even though Amnon was the firstborn. See, and that's the thing with succession. You know what God is telling you. All right, and that's how you're prepping. You
Mm.
know, even though people might think it's this, but you know what God has told you, and you can't go with what naturally should be done. All right, and that's the thing
And
about
didn't his son, one of his sons, if I'm not mistaken, try to take the kingdom from him?
that was Absalom. You know, and that was Absalom. He tried his hardest, and that's because he was still upset with his father's decision. He
Mm.
was upset with his father because his father knew that Amnon was a rapist and raped his sister, and he did nothing. He saw David not exercising good leadership skills, even in the
Mm.
household. So his anger and rage said, you know what? If you ain't gonna be a good leader, then I will. You get up off the throne. You get up off this throne. And he tried his best to intoxicate the people with his charisma, with his personality, with his good communication skills. But guess what? He was not the anointed one.
Wow.
So, and the thing is this, when we talk about also, predecessors, you have a responsibility to also get your successors ready and positioned. Understand this. The thing that I realized, King Solomon was the wisest king the Bible talks about, and he was rich. And he was the one that built the temple of the Lord. But understand, his riches didn't just come from him. His riches came from his father, David, that set him up for succession. Set
Mm.
him up with all that wealth. Set him up with the materials. Set him up so that he would not come into a position in a deficit in the rears. Why am I saying that? I'm saying this for also, our predecessors. You got, especially in church, you want to get these people together. You want to get your successors together. You need to make sure that the house is in order. You need to make sure that the finances are together. You need to make sure A through Z is put together so that your successor will not just be scratching their
Yeah.
head like, how am I supposed to get us back up out of the red into the green, back out the red into the black? I don't seem to understand it. Successors also make sure everything is in order. That's what David did for Solomon. So Solomon, only thing Solomon had to ask for
Wow.
when the vision of the Lord came to him, when the spirit of the Lord came to him, was what God said, what do you want? Hey, I want wisdom on how to treat the people fairly and how to govern them. God said, no problem, good heart. I'm not going to always not only give you that, I'm going to make sure that you're famous. I'm going to make sure that this is that. He didn't have to worry about
Wow.
riches. That came with the wisdom, but it also came with his father setting him up.
Mm. So
So
good. This conversation, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is something that we just jump back on and give you kind of the after the Leader to Leader live conversation about succession and how powerful it is. If you are in leadership, you need to take advantage of that succession plan. You need to begin to think about that and write out some of the things that's in your head, right? There's so much you do that is not on paper. Nobody knows how things really work. You got to have a plan. And I love what Pastor Emanuela said today. She said, if you have a plan, you won't panic, right? If you have a plan, you won't panic. And many times we find ourselves in panic because we don't have a plan. A plan is not something in your mind, it's something on paper, it's something on a drive, it's something on your computer. It's something that people can get access to and have a course of action to take in the event that anything happens to you, or you're at the point where you're ready to retire and pass the baton. So this has been good. Oh man, so good, so good. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation again with Pastor Emanuela Young. All right, you guys, we'll see you on tomorrow at 1:30.
All right, bye.